Welcome, everybody. Today is March 28th, 2023, and we are here today with astrologer Sirena Martel, who specializes in relationship astrology. She was generous enough to accept my offer and my invitation to join us for an interactive Zoom chat. I like to do things in a way that's a win for everybody. And I've seen so many YouTube videos where people interview an expert, and I have questions, and I know there's other people who have questions, and it's just only usually from the perspective of one person. And I love how some of the questions are so interesting and questions I wish I had asked myself. And so I'm going to give everyone a chance to ask anything that they might want to know. Sirena is an astrologer. She does charge for her services, rightfully so, for all of the years of learning and expertise and learning from doing readings for clients. So we are not going to do individual readings today. I just want to point that out. But if you have some general questions that you would like to direct towards her, she will be accepting questions. So with that said, I'm going to give Sirena an opportunity. Well, first, let me introduce myself as the host. My name is Diana Montijo. I am a holistic healing practitioner. I do sound healing, which is what I specialize in, and I see clients in Central California. What I have noticed is that oftentimes when clients come in and they're dealing with certain problems, I will ask them about their astrology chart. And like if they tell me, I had someone a couple of months ago tell me they were a Scorpio, and I told them, well, you just had a solar eclipse in your sign. And they asked me, well, what does that mean? And I tell them, I'm not an expert. You really should go and get an astrology reading. But I listen to astrology a lot, and it's always interesting to me how the transits that are moving through the sky are influencing people in different ways. And so with that said, Sirena, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. And I want to thank you again for being here and accepting my request for this Zoom chat.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I am based in Los Angeles. I have over 20 years experience doing this. I was born psychic. I remember telling my mom that I was seeing certain things, certain people in particular, and luckily she did not try to shut it down. She would just tell me, I don't see what you see. And it's been that way my whole entire life. And karmic partners and karmic relationships have been the root of my business for at least 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. They've always been there, but for some reason over the last few years, they have become more prevalent. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I mean, there could be several reasons. But now that we have these two planets, Saturn and Pluto, that have shifted signs, there's going to be a lot of, unfortunately, more karmic partners coming into play, and hopefully some will finally break apart. And people are not understanding that these two planets changing signs, it's a really big deal. We have been, well, Saturn has been in Saturn ruled signs since 2017. And Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. And when Saturn moved into Pisces, that's going to affect a lot of people's charts because the energy is completely different. Mm-hmm. So some people don't realize that if they are a Pisces sun, moon, rising, Saturn is going to conjunct that in their chart at some point over the next 3 years, if it's not already happening, and that it is going to not be a fun transit if you have not done any healing work. Mm-hmm. If you are Virgo, sun, moon, rising, Saturn is going to oppose that. That too cannot be a fun transit. Saturn is not fun. Let's just put it that way. It's one of the malefic planets. And if people have not done healing work, and let's face it, a lot of people have not, then these particular transits are not going to be easy for them. Gemini and Sagittarius too, because Saturn in Pisces is going to square those signs. So a lot of relationship shifts are going to start taking place. Now, with Pluto in Aquarius, for some reason, I've had a lot more people ask me about Pluto in Aquarius. And I think it's because Pluto just has this really bad reputation of being this scary, evil planet. But Pluto is the planet of healing and transformation. And I think people don't understand that when you go through a healing journey, you're supposed to go into the underworld. You're supposed to go into the shadow self, meaning the places that you don't like, the places that you deny, the things that you shove under the rug, and you have to come face to face with those things, which is not a pleasant experience. But if you want life to get better, if you want your relationships to get better, if you want just things in general to be better, this is what you have to do. But oftentimes what happens is people will attempt to go to therapy and they get confronted because it's scary, it hurts. You're going to have those difficult conversations with people that you love, and they don't always go the way that you think that they're going to go, and they don't want to continue on. And you also are going to get flack from the people in your life. They want you to stay the same because it works better that way for them. If you start to change and you start to upset the apple cart, then they're going to try and make life difficult for you. And so then you're confronted with a choice. Do I stay on this healing journey and either limit my contact with people that I love, or possibly have to eliminate them from my life? Or do I go back to the way I used to be just because I want to keep these people who are unhealed and don't know anything in my life? And I think when Pluto was in Capricorn, we became very much aware of the dark side of this country, but we also became aware of the dark side within ourselves. So all of that could be transformed and healed. Pluto is the phoenix that rises up from the ashes of destruction so that there can be a rebirth, something that is better, something that is healthier. And that's what happens when people do healing work. We have cleared away all of the stuff that is dead or dying, because that is what keeps people stuck and stagnant. And Pluto in Aquarius is going to show us, will continue to show us what areas of life, not just within ourselves, but also in society, that is not necessarily working, what's broken, what's invalid, what is not for our highest good. And we're going to start thinking and questioning why things are the way they are. And how are we going to get by in terms of survival? Because there's going to be a lot of changes in terms of food and water and education and healthcare and medicine. The good news is we get to make changes that are for our highest good. We can fix all of that. We can make it better. But in order for us to fix all of those things, we have to start with ourselves. Because remember what they say on the airplane, you have to put the mask over your own face first before you can assist somebody else. So Pluto in Aquarius is going to be a time of great awakening. And I've been telling my subscribers as well as my followers and clients that Pluto is going to encourage or force many people to embrace a healing journey, because there's far too many people on this planet who are suffering from trauma, whether they realize it or not. And trauma is what keeps you frozen and immobilized, so you can't move forward in life. And in order for us to proceed as an enlightened society, we have to remove or unblock whatever is preventing us from growing. So Pluto in Aquarius will really unlock that door that so many people are scared to open. And
to me, what Pluto is it is that part that it's an energy that festers. And it totally fits in with what you're saying, because what I tell people is you can't heal something that you don't see.
Right.
And it's Pluto that is going to bring attention to that part.
Right. And so Pluto in Aquarius's transit through a natal house will tell you what area of life is up for change, but you also have to be aware of any particular Pluto transits that you could be going through as well, because Pluto aspecting a personal planet is not really a fun thing. I have Pluto opposing my Mercury currently. This transit started at the end of February. It's going to be with me until the end of 2024. And for the most part, it's been okay. But this past week with Mars and Gemini finally coming to a close and shifting into Cancer, all of that Gemini energy that had been on the back burner for so many months came to the forefront. Then we had that new moon in Aries, which kind of lit a fire underneath all of that energy. And yesterday, I just thought that I was going to lose my mind.
Oh, oh no.
And I have Mercury at 29 degrees. So when you have it at that anoretic degree, it wasn't fun yesterday.
And Pluto, I'm not saying Pluto, to me, I think it seems like the kind of energy that is a slow grind, like the way that the Grand Canyon was formed, with water just slowly eroding, where you can't see it happening. It doesn't happen quickly. It happens slowly over time, but it is still deep transformation. That's what I think the energy of Pluto's like.
Yes, it is. And the house that Pluto transits in, that's where people can experience the most transformation, the most growth, and they can feel free and fulfilled. And it really could be the opportunity of a lifetime. So therefore, if Pluto is going to go through, let's say, one of the love houses, which is the 5th, the 7th, the 8th, why not do that healing work so you don't miss out on the opportunity of meeting a divine counterpart? Because 2023 is a 7-year. That 7 is about sacred unions, divine love, divine counterparts. This year is ruled by Neptune. Neptune governs the 12th house, which is soulmates, past lives.
But Neptune is also the energy of illusion and delusion, though.
Yes, that is very, very true. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. I tell clients and followers that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, which a lot of people don't realize. Venus represents ego-based love. It's what you want when you want it, and it doesn't really matter what the other person wants. But Neptune, yes, is the planet of illusion, delusion, confusion, and there is a tendency to romanticize. But Neptune is also a very spiritual planet. So when you've done that healing work, you have the opportunity to be able to meet that high level soulmate or divine counterpart. I particularly don't care for the term twin flame, but that is what people are striving for. That's what everybody wants. That's what I get asked about the most. And when people come to me,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, when people come to me and say, I'm with a twin flame, I hate to be the bearer of bad news and tell them, no, you're not. You're with a karmic. How much healing work have you done? How much healing work has your partner done? It's usually slim to none. So I'm sorry, it's not a twin flame. I've been on a healing journey for 40 years. How do you get a twin flame and I don't?
Is there any astrology that would describe how two people would have a magnetic pull towards each other?
There's several. Yes, you could start with the nodes, for instance. Oftentimes there is a past life connection involved, and you've known that person before, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you were lovers in a previous life. You could be somebody's parent. You could be somebody's sibling. And that's the part that I think a lot of people don't understand. Just because you have nodal synastry with somebody doesn't mean that you were always lovers throughout all of these lifetimes.
Yeah, my mom and her mom, they had such a strong bond. They had a very strong soul connection. And my grandma used to tell her, I just know if I leave the house that you're gonna, she called my mom like her second pair of hands. And yeah, they were daughter and mom, but they were like a pair, it seemed like. So I understand what you're saying. It's not necessarily a romantic kind of a connection, but there's definitely a lot of talk right now about the twin flame journey. And I hadn't planned on talking about that today, but we probably should have put that in the title somehow. We would have gotten a whole lot of people coming on board for today.
Probably. And they probably would have been upset because of what I have to say about that.
Yeah. And so when you and I saw you and I talked before this, and one of the things we talked about was Venus square Saturn, and then afterwards you posted something about Venus square Saturn.
Did I? I don't remember.
You don't remember that? We talked about it in our meeting. So in my chart, I have Venus is conjunct the sun, it's Cazimi, and both of them are in a hard opposition to Saturn.
Oh, that part I remember. It's combust, you said.
Yeah, so my Venus is combust. And to me, what Venus square the sun is when people don't see your self-worth, and you don't see it yourself either. And Venus square Saturn is the Lord of time, and Venus square Saturn is bad timing. And also, for me, it has been like a lesson in self-respect, a very painful lesson in self-respect, and learning to let people lose me. Yeah, it hasn't been easy, and I feel like I'm still integrating the lessons of Venus square Saturn. And Saturn is like the cosmic dad that says no, correct?
What was that again?
Saturn is like the cosmic dad, like a
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Saturn is that stern taskmaster who makes you go through all of these tests and trials. And this is what I try to explain to my younger clients who are in their 20s, thinking that they're going to marry the person that they're with and that it will last forever. I actually said to somebody today who was 24 years old and they want to get married. And I said, I'm not a big fan of people getting married before Saturn return because you really don't know who you are. But if that is something that you want to do, just be open to the possibility that it may not last. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a wonderful journey. And that's what relationships are. They are a journey. I'm sure that you will learn something from this person for the years that you are together. And maybe you'll prove me wrong. Maybe you will be able to make it last several years. But it all depends on how much healing work has been done, what your relationship history prior to this has been, how much faith do you have in a higher power? How committed are you to making this work? Relationships are really hard work, and they're even tougher when your brain is not even fully formed yet. That doesn't happen until 25. And that was another thing I was trying to explain. You think you love this person now, and I'm sure you do. But next year, when you turn 25, it's like a light switch goes off in your head and everything looks differently. Because I remember when I turned 25, everything started to look differently. My thought processes were different. I wanted different things. And that was even before Saturn returned.
And Saturn is a planet that makes things real.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's a builder,
Yes.
but it also rules boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and healthy boundaries.
Yes.
So when you look at somebody's chart, I'm sure this is probably a dumb question. you probably don't just look at their Venus placement
No,
and their moon placement, right? Because the moon rules how we feel comforted and nurtured, right? That's like
correct.
the cosmic mother is the moon, and Saturn is the cosmic father, and Venus and Mars are the cosmic lovers. So do you look at how their Venus sits in relationship to their Mars, or?
When I do a love astrology reading or a karmic partner reading, the first thing I do look at is the fourth house. I want to see how this person was raised. What kind of tomfoolery and nudnickery did they deal with growing up? Because whatever happens in your fourth house trickles down into your romantic relationships. And a lot of people don't realize that. And you end up dating people, if you're straight, who is just like your mom. If you're a man, your dad. If you're a woman, and if you're gay, it's the same sex. And people don't realize that the chaos and drama that they grew up with, which they consider to be normal, and that follows into their relationships, is really not normal. And it has to do with trauma that was not addressed, not healed, and probably goes back at least 7 generations. So whatever you dealt with, mom and dad dealt with, their parents dealt with it, and it goes back at, like I said, at least 7 generations. So if you have not healed your fourth house, it really does not matter what the rest of the chart says. I don't care if you have Venus in an exalted sign. I don't care if you have Mars in an exalted sign. I don't care if the synastry chart is great and wonderful. If you have not done healing work, at the end of the day, it is not going to work. Plain and simple.
But
The second thing I look at is Chiron. And then the third thing I look at is Pluto, and then Saturn.
and you're talking about the first house as in the ascendant.
No, I'm talking about the fourth house of home and family.
Oh,
That's
right,
the
but
first thing that I look at.
fourth house from the ascendant and not from
Fourth
the
house
sun.
from the ascendant is your
Yeah.
house of home and family.
Yeah. So I was thinking about what you do and how it relates to healing, because in what I have come to learn is that our relationships with other people are a reflection of our relationship with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I told you about how my dad used to work for an astrologer, and it wasn't until a few years ago it triggered that memory. I met an astrologer and it got me interested. And there was so much when I started studying my chart, there was so much that explained my life experience. And to me, it's empowering to understand your chart and
Yes.
have a professional look it over and help you explain different things. I think that it could be an advantage. I think that it could be a tool,
Yes.
healing, and to help you overcome certain things. And for me, it explained so much. And I was just studying on my own. And when I just started learning about it, I just wanted to learn more. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you to join us here. And so, yeah, this is really good.
It's so interesting that what we started to talk about has now evolved into something completely different.
Yeah. So Delilah is asking, how do you start healing? If I could address that question, do you
Sure.
mind? And then I'll let
Sure.
you chime in. And so I'm a subtle energy healing practitioner. And what people don't understand is that energy and information, it gets stored in the body, in the cells of your body, in the DNA, and in the magnetic field. And some people approach healing like they expect it to be like a light switch. It is really a process. It is a journey that requires a deep commitment to yourself. and a commitment to not give up when things get hard, because really deep healing, you usually end up looking at things that are really hard, like you realize all the things you put up with when you didn't know that you deserved better. And you have to look at things that you did when you were wounded, things you accepted, and that includes relationships, right? But if you know your chart, if you have it explained to you, like especially how you were talking about your Chiron, it explains so much. And it is like a key of empowerment to me. That's what I have found. But healing is it's a journey. And so I do healing in the auric field, and you want to clear energy that's in your body, clear energy that's in your aura, and look for whatever speaks to you. Look into whatever is calling to you, and then just keep on going and stay committed to yourself. How do you see that astrology can help people with healing?
I have a trauma reading where I will look at their Chiron, their Pluto, their Saturn, their 8th house, because that's usually where your trauma is. Because a lot of people have said to me, I don't know what my trauma is. I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to be working on. How do I call a therapist if I don't know what I'm supposed to be talking about? And oftentimes what I will tell people is, if they aren't sure, the first place to look at is what pisses you off. And then if they
What
want to get,
triggers you?
yes, what triggers you? And then depending on what it is, and trauma is a very delicate subject. I'm not a therapist, and the last thing I want to do is re-traumatize another person. So when it comes to sexual abuse, which is, like I said, it's a delicate subject, but a lot of people are victims of that. I kind of have to dance around that subject. I have to be very careful when I broach that subject, because some people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to admit that it happened. They don't want to remember that it happened. And when it's put in the context of a birth chart, that gives them the opportunity to think about that, process it. And oftentimes they do come back later and say, you were right, this did happen to me. At which point I will tell them, a regular therapist may not be able to help you, but a therapist who specializes in trauma or PTSD can help you better.
Okay, so I actually deal with a lot of trauma, PTSD, and sexual abuse. Speaking on that subject, the energy in your auric field, it gets stored in a way that has a timeline aspect to it and a compartmentalized aspect to it. So people who have a history of sexual abuse, they will have this energy of shame that shows up off to the right hip, and emotional freeze that shows up off to the right knee. It is an energy signature that is like background music playing, that is a reminder of a painful time. And so a lot of my clients have that energy in their energy imprint in their auric field. And then PTSD, that shows up a lot around the head and also around the knees, and some energies get imprinted throughout the whole entire field, like they show up everywhere. And it is a process that is not easy. It gets really uncomfortable for people. They have a really hard time talking about it. But yeah, that is something that I do in my healing work. People are more comfortable talking about it now, but there's some people who've never told anybody in their
Right.
in their 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really touchy subject, and you have to respect people's boundaries and where they're at in their ability to share that or to even look at it for themselves. If it happened when they were really young, it is addressing that problem and facing it head on could feel like trying to overcome a monster that's bigger than themselves. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, I had to address that comment.
Well, I'm glad that you did. I am a sexual abuse survivor myself. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. I share my story often in that I had a
I'm
long
sorry that
line.
I'm sorry that happened to you, by the
Oh,
way.
thank you. I have a long line of karmic partners due to the fact that I did not heal this. And I tried to heal a void that was inside of me. I knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't quite know what it was, yet it was staring me right in the face. And it wasn't until I was in a 12th house perfection year 12 years ago, and I was forced to feel my feelings, that the deeper healing started. And it was not an easy process. I still fought it, I think, for maybe a couple of more years after that. And then I finally just surrendered. There was no other way around it. Luckily, because I had been on a healing journey for so many years prior to that, it didn't take so long to move past that. But the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. And I don't think that people understand that change is the only constant thing in life. They all want things to stay the same. And growth happens whether we want it to or not. Resistance to change, wanting things to stay the same, only adds to the possibility of the universe, or even Pluto for that matter, stepping in and making that change for you, which, trust me, you don't want that to happen, because the change is often very harsh and abrupt. And in some cases, especially with Pluto, it can be traumatic. So by looking at the natal chart and the transits involved, I can tell a person what they can expect to happen and when. And I don't suggest waiting until the last minute. So with Saturn doing all of these things to Virgo and Pisces placements, and to a certain extent Gemini and Sagittarius, I've been saying your debt's been paid. You could very well expect a breakup or a divorce in the next 3 years. What do you mean? If the debt's paid, Saturn says it's done, then you got to go. That's it. No questions.
Pisces and what else?
Pisces and Virgo, because Saturn is in Pisces. Virgo is opposite Pisces on the zodiac wheel. And then you have Gemini and Sagittarius, which are they're square Pisces. And it's you know, I had a conversation with my subscribers today about Venus in Virgo, Juno in Virgo. Juno is an asteroid that represents marriage and long-term commitment. That's another thing I look at in my love astrology readings. Virgo is opposite Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is saying it's done. It's time to go. And there's no other way out around it or out of it. I mean, you can try and make it work, but oftentimes when you do that, you're just racking up more karmic debt. And Saturn can make it very uncomfortable for you if you continue to stay in that relationship. The writing's on the wall.
This is scary. This is scary.
I don't mean to scare people. And I have a whole Pluto and Aquarius class planned for my subscribers next Sunday. And
let's talk about that.
Oh, you want to talk about Pluto and Aquarius?
Your class.
Oh, you want to talk about my class?
Yeah.
I was going over some of my notes, I think it was last night, and I'm like, I don't want to scare the bejesus out of these people. But Aquarius is an air sign, and we are going to be dealing with mental health issues in the next 20 years. And it's already started. We had a shooting yesterday. And I'm hearing something.
I'm hearing something too. Jenny, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, please. There, okay. Oh, there might be someone else. I muted Jenny. Okay, it was Gabriella. Okay, let's go.
Okay. I was saying that Aquarius is an air sign, so we are going to be dealing with more mental issues moving forward. But I think that there's going to be a huge breakthrough in that, but it's not going to happen right away. Remember, we have a 20-year transit for this to happen, but we're dealing with generations, Pluto in Sagittarius, Pluto in Capricorn, who grew up with a lot of stuff that children should not see. School shootings. For Pluto in Sagittarius, I think that was post 9/11. Extreme weather situations. Now Pluto and Capricorn teenagers in the Ukraine are dealing with war and whatnot. And that is going to cause a lot of mental issues. And when they get to a certain age, they're going to see that their parents did not deal with their own stuff. And they will see that mom and dad are suffering from anxiety and depression. Why did they do this? What caused it? Why am I dealing with this? What can we do to make it better? And also, with the people now who are not dealing with their stuff, in 20 years, they're going to be in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. And all of that is going to take a toll. So there's going to be an older generation who is going to have mental issues, PTSD, that has gone untreated. And that is a very scary thing to think about.
So
Also, autism has been a big deal over the last, 20 years maybe, but we're going to make strides with that as well. One of my friends, one of her children got diagnosed with that just recently. And she said it's very hard because it's hard to find resources. I said it's hard to find resources now, but that's going to change with Pluto and Aquarius. And it might not be something that will help her now because she's young. Maybe it won't happen until she's in her 20s, but better her 20s than never at all.
okay, so something that I have found and other practitioners that I know have found who work with subtle energy is that a lot of people with autism, their energy centers, their chakras are either distorted, they're shut down, they're blocked, they're underperforming, and they can't process that subtle energy. It creates like a kink in a water hose because the energy moves up and around and up and around, and then from the top of the head, above the top of the head, down and around and down, and it recycles. And so when you have a blockage in those chakra points, then that subtle energy of our emotions, it can't be processed through that chakra system. And so a lot of people with autism have these stuff and blow kind of patterns. And so subtle energy workers can help to resolve that. And there's a tuning fork therapy that I teach that helps parents to resolve that for their children. It requires a different approach. And it's frustrating because a lot of people don't understand subtle energy. And for me, I'll tell you, I was born into a long line of women who were highly intuitive, and I didn't trust my sensing abilities when I started working with subtle energy, and I didn't trust what I was sensing. And the more I have worked with clients, it's been 8 years now, it's all about just finding it and helping it to shift and resolve. But with people who have autism, there's a lot of subtle energy work that can help anybody with autism. I'm sorry, I had to speak to that. So I'm getting off the topic of astrology, which is why people are here. So I'm going to shut up about that now.
No, but it's very interesting that you brought that up because it also ties into the fact that we need to make changes in our educational system, because the way that it is now, kids are taught very cookie cutter, and not every kid is like that. Some kids are okay going to school at 8:30 in the morning, others not so much. Some kids are audio, some kids are visual, And then you have your kids who are on the spectrum, and they're kind of left out in the cold because there's not enough teachers. I do have a friend who is a teacher for children on the spectrum, and she said it's very hard to find a substitute when she has to take time off or go on vacation, or if she gets sick or whatever. And you know, the kids and the young people born during Uranus and Aquarius, I mean, they're super smart. I don't even know if they really technically are on the spectrum. Their brains just work completely different than everybody else's. They are forward thinkers. They have ideas flowing through their brain that we just can't fathom. So, like I said, Aquarius is an air sign. The brain falls under that domain. So in time during this transit, our ability to process information is going to become faster. So we're not going to have a choice but to adapt to this Aquarius energy. And the babies born during this transit are going to be more smart. I don't even know if that's correct grammar, but they're going to be smarter than previous generations. And I know some people who have young children and they're like, I can't do this math. Imagine what's going to happen when the Pluto and Aquarius babies are born and they start going to school. They're going to be very bored with what is happening, and they're going to want to drop out of school. So that's when things are really going to have to change. They're also going to be very sensitive to the energies around them. And already that is an issue in schools about kids being HSP, highly sensitive people, and they don't like loud noises, and they need to carry certain things with them, whether it's a crystal or a stuffed animal. And who knows, maybe autism would be the new normal, or there can be other archetypes that are discovered during the cycle in regards to the brain. But on the other hand, due to the lack of people refusing to do healing work, as I said, these older generations are going to be suffering from mental illness and PTSD. But my hope is that there's going to be more medical, social, and political efforts to find a cure for and eliminate that before it happens.
So people who have water placements like Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, those people tend to be empathic, correct? Their sensing abilities lean towards empathic sensing.
Yes, but only if they are open to it. A lot of times they will turn it off because it's too uncomfortable. It's too overwhelming.
What are the sensitivities of somebody who is an Aquarius? Because that's an air sign, so that's more of a clairsentience kind of
they could be sensitive to light. They could be sensitive to loud music. They could be sensitive to crowds.
Yeah.
Anything that's going to trigger that mental, the mental stuff. So going on an airplane, they might have to wear headphones all the time. Going to a family gathering, whether it's good energy or not, they might have to wear headphones in order to block all of that out.
Yeah.
And older generations view that as this child is not very sociable.
Yeah.
But they're just protecting their energy. That's the only way that they can be there with grandma and grandpa and everybody else screaming and yelling.
Yeah, my ascendant is in Aquarius. I am very comfortable to be alone, and I live inside my head. And yeah, it's funny how you describe people's personalities based on their astrology signs. But I have a lot of water fixed signs. So much fixed signs. Fixed signs is indicative of someone who's stubborn, correct?
They do not like change. Boy, my fixed signs, Pluto and Scorpio, Chiron and Taurus, you drive me crazy because you just want to hold on to that karmic for dear life.
Are fixed signs money signs?
Taurus and Scorpio, yes.
Taurus and Scorpio. Okay. What about Pluto in the 8th house? Because I've also heard The 8th house has to do with it's a money house. And Pluto is also like large wealth.
Well, I've had conversations about this with people who are astrologically adept and not. Scorpio is very dark energy, and it all has to do with healing work. I was watching TV the other day, and I don't even remember what program it was, but there was thieves that were on a yacht and they were there to steal money. And I'm like, that is some dark ass Scorpio energy right there. And the opposite instead of that is Taurus. And so to me, it's like, if you have a lot of Taurus energy and you know how to make money and you've done healing work, then you're very charitable, you're very generous, and you're walking around and nobody even knows that you have any money. It seems like Scorpio energy is like, let me throw the dollars around. But at the same time, they're also involved in a lot of, shady, shystery kind of things, and they can still make money. They can still be kingpins.
See, and so, okay, I know people with placements that don't fit their sign, because like my mom's a Scorpio. She grew up in the Great Depression, very humble. She doesn't like fit like what you're describing. And then I have clients who are Scorpios and they don't fit like what you're describing. But what I think is that there's polarities with each sign, correct?
Degrees come into play there. And Elise had said you have to look and see what their ruling planet is as well, because if they're very Venusian in their chart, then that may not play out. If they're very Mercurial in their chart, that's not going to play out.
Okay.
And I always look at the degrees of the planets as well. So for instance, I'm Venus in Gemini, but I don't really resonate with Venus in Gemini descriptions. But my Venus is at 20 degrees, which is a Scorpio degree, and I really resonate with that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do people ever decide not to marry somebody based on your astrology readings?
I've never had anybody say, I'm not going to marry this person. What I have heard is, had I known this information beforehand, maybe I would not have married him, or maybe I would not have divorced him.
Oh.
It's my wish that they would get a reading and then not move forward, but they don't do that. Yeah. It's like they want to prove me wrong or something. In fact, here's a perfect example. I did a reading for a woman in the summertime last year, and her son was getting married during Mercury retrograde. So it was late August or early September. I can't remember.
Oh, wow.
And I told her, please get him to postpone or reschedule. And she said, well, they had already postponed once. When was the first wedding supposed to take place? The weekend of the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. I said, well, it's a good thing that they canceled that. So they went ahead and they got married, and she contacted me. I think it was March the 15th. That was the day that Venus was squaring Pluto at the anaretic degree, telling me that they had filed for divorce. I'm like, okay.
Wow. And
they say astrology isn't real. And I've seen that time and time again. I have a Why Did We Break Up reading. And every single time they met during a Mercury retrograde or a Venus retrograde or a Juno retrograde or during eclipse season, and even though it lasted a couple of years, that's about as good as you can get out of it.
Wow. Okay. Why don't you advertise that better? Why did we break up? Oh my gosh. Wow.
I have advertised that reading, and I don't, believe it or not, I don't get as much business from that reading as I do the karmic partner reading. But I also look at the transits that were going on that particular day. I look at the transits that were going on for both partners. And every single time the transits were not good. This is why you broke up. And oftentimes when they meet during a Mercury retrograde, they will break up during a Mercury retrograde. If they meet during a Venus retrograde, they will break up during a Mercury retrograde or during the next Venus retrograde. And Venus goes retrograde every 18 to 19 months.
Nadia Shah says that breakups that happen during a Mercury retrograde tend to not stick. Unless it's been a breakup and a breakup and a breakup.
Breakups that happen during a Mercury retrograde, people can get back together. It just depends on what's going on in the chart. Maybe they needed that time apart to have some introspection, to have some insight, to miss each other, to figure out this is who I really want to be with. But it also depends on what's going on in the synastry chart as well. And synastry is the chart of two people to see how the energies of the planets are working together. And I have a siren going by.
I don't hear it. We don't hear it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what kind of a transit or aspect would you say is indicative of no going back, a relationship that can't be patched up, fixed up, repaired in any way?
There's not one aspect in particular. What I tell people is that I've had clients over the years who had the best synastry or the best composite chart. A composite chart is a chart of the relationship itself. It can tell you what the possible outcome is, and they cannot make it work. And then I have people who've had the worst synastry who should not even be together. They have less than 30% compatibility and they are making it work. It all boils down to the commitment that they have to one another, their willingness to grow together, the belief in a higher faith, as I mentioned earlier, their past relationship history. Now, in some cases, does it mean that it's happy? That's the $1 million question, because longevity means nothing. My parents were married for over 60 years. Were they happy? That's debatable.
I think Saturn square Venus is...
That's a karmic aspect. It's a toughie, but I've seen it work too. It just depends on how willing you are to learn those Saturn lessons. And then Saturn becomes the glue that keeps you together.
Well, in my case, I think it's been more of a, I don't know, Saturn has been really harsh for me. And maybe it has to do with the debilitation by the sun. But
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, I've cursed
is
that.
Tough.
Yeah. I've cursed Saturn. And to me, my lessons from Saturn have like dragged me kicking and screaming. Learn this, damn it, learn it. Haven't been easy. But what I have found with Saturn is that if you don't, and it's probably the case with anything, if you don't learn the lesson the first time, the next time is harder, and then the next time is even harder. It's like until you learn your lesson, it just becomes more painful until you
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell my clients and my followers, for whatever reason, Saturn seems to think that people are mature around age 35, 36. And that is, if you do your healing work, that's when you can expect that relationship to come in. Until then, have fun. No one says that you can't date. No one says that you can't get into a relationship. No one says that you can't even get married. But it won't be easy. When you start learning those lessons, that's when you'll be rewarded with that soulmate or that life partner. And these days, people are not as mature as they were when I was in my 20s and 30s. So I will go so far as to say they might even be in their 40s before they get that person. So don't wait around. Don't waste time with these karmic partners after karmic partners after karmic partners. I have a Capricorn ruled 5th house. I'm telling you from personal experience that it doesn't come until later in life.
You and I are about the same age, and so our
And
parents,
don't we look great?
our parents, they were encultured to get married right out of high school, right?
Mhm.
And if you got pregnant, you got married, whether you were in love or not, and you stayed married. And
Yes,
if there was infidelity, you still stayed married. If there was
yes,
physical violence in the relationship, you still stayed married. And um, divorce was an abomination in the 50s, 40, it just wasn't done. And so what I've noticed now is that people who are like my boys' age, they get married later, or they don't get married. They might not want to get married at all. It's just a whole different viewpoint, and I think that it's that whole Pluto, that generational Pluto, that changes people's perspective on things like relationships and society.
yes. Pluto in Libra actually is the generation that changed marriage and relationships as we knew it prior to that. And as I was telling my subscribers earlier today, women didn't have a choice before that. We were not able to go and get a job. We were not able to get a credit card until I think it was in the 70s. Women were not allowed to own property. And
Weren't
so we
allowed
were
to vote.
yeah, we weren't allowed to vote until 100 years ago. So we were kind of stuck in this situation. And, of course, religion and God played a lot in that as well, as far as you shouldn't divorce your husband. You just had to put up with whatever he put out. And now it's different. Now it's much more expensive to have a girlfriend, much less a wife.
Yeah.
And I think that relationships are a lot harder now than they were even when I was younger, because of all the trauma that young people have dealt with growing up. And I just everything is different now. And of course, it just seems like there's more and more people who are getting involved in karmic relationships. And I think it's because they grew up with trauma and they feel neglected, or they felt abandoned by their parents, and they just want somebody to love them. So they will glom on to anybody who comes their way, and then they have a baby thinking that that's going to make it better, and it just makes it worse. And then there's that generational trauma repeating itself.
Yeah. And speaking to what there was something you said earlier about our parents not dealing with their stuff. If you look at the 60s, the people in the 60s, you see shows, they had alcohol at work. They
Did they?
smoked and drank like
Well, yeah, they did
crazy.
that. Yeah,
They
they did.
lived drunk and smoking a pack of cigarette a day. And it was just a lot of avoidance kind of
Yes.
practices.
Hmm.
And they were raising kids while they were suppressing their own stuff. And so, and then that just leaves a great big mess for our age group.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe it's just been bad for generations since this country began. And we're just only now being made aware of it because of social media. Because remember, all of that bad stuff got stuck behind closed doors. Nobody
Yeah,
knew unless
right.
somebody went to school with a bruise or went to work with a bruise. That
Yeah,
was the only way that you knew that that stuff was going on.
yeah. And with sexual abuse too, until
Hmm.
the Me Too movement, people didn't feel empowered to talk about it.
And
And
they still don't, because there's not enough punishment.
no, there isn't enough punishment. There's a lot of suffering in silence.
Yes.
A lot of throat chakra blockage and shutdown, and a lot of intimidation and power grabbing. So yeah, for the person who asked about how do you heal, The subtle energy work can be very powerful in shifting those energies, but it requires commitment. And Pluto to me is a planet that shows you where things fester in your chart. What does that mean for people who are our age who have Pluto and Virgo?
Well, Virgo is the sign of health. And like you brought up the fact that there was a lot of drinking, there was a lot of smoking. Yes, that still continued in Pluto and Virgo. But there also was the rise of new age stuff during Pluto and Virgo. And I think that our generation was looking for ways to fix something that was wrong or missing. And I don't know if that came from looking at our own parents. That wasn't what it was for me. I just knew inherently that there was something wrong that needed to be fixed. And it wasn't until I dove deep into my healing that I realized my mother was also a sexual abuse victim. I knew my grandmother was. I knew that two of my aunts were. And I kind of figured that she was as well, but she never talked about it. And so when I talk to other women my own age, it seems like they too were just on this quest to find something that was going to fix something here. And it really was outside of what was going on at home. You know, they would call a therapist and they would just say, I feel this way, or I'm going through a divorce, or I had a baby and I don't feel happy. That's postpartum. And then they would maybe get into the family stuff. But now we're seeing that there is a correlation between the family stuff that follows each generation.
Yeah. Lotus Elise said this country loves to have us suffer in silence for sure.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
I know somebody from Canada and he grew up there and he told me Americans love to think that they're free. He goes, they're not.
We're not.
Come live in Canada for a year and tell me who's free.
Yeah. Yeah. We think, and we work so hard just to make a paycheck, and it's the 1% that is getting all of the frosting from the work that we do, all of the benefits of the work that we do. So I think there's so many shifts coming, so much change that is unreversible, which is what Pluto and Aquarius is to me. And what I understand about Pluto is that it breaks down structures that can't be sustained anymore. They're not sustainable, and they make room for something better.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're going through Pluto return in this country as well. So that all of these old systems can break down. And we needed that. So Pluto and Aquarius can step in and we can start to rebuild. It's unfortunately, because Pluto moves so slowly, it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not even going to happen in the next couple of years.
And it's an uncomfortable change.
It's going to be an uncomfortable change for a lot of people. And I told my followers, I think it was last week, that COVID was the beginning point of how we could manage change. And we failed miserably. And we keep getting do-overs because we keep getting these new variants and we keep failing miserably. And so if you can't handle change, you're not going to make it in what's coming up. We have a lot of new planetary shifts coming in the next year to 20 years.
Well,
life we know it is done.
Yeah, that's what scares me, because I have a lot of fixed energy. I confess, I really don't do all the change. I have fixed fire, fixed air, fixed water, fixed. And change has been very uncomfortable to me.
I get it if you have a lot of fixed energy, but yet your husband does quantum leaping.
In his sleep.
He's all about the change.
And my youngest son too. My youngest son does quantum leaping. So just to explain, my son, he's going to be mad that I shared this. He will go in his dreams, he goes to other realities and other lives, and my husband does the same thing. He'll be there with other wives and yeah, and he's wondering the whole time where I'm at, but he's immersed in other lives. And one psychic intuitive that I know, she told me that the veil between the worlds is very thin. The veil between alternate realities is very thin. And someone with strong psychic abilities can quantum leap without even trying. And that's what my son and my husband do. And my oldest, he's highly empathic. And me, I'm definitely very sensitive to energy and get intuitive hits. And I've had different experiences that we don't have time for here, but anyway, let's see. Oh, Nova is saying she does some quantum leaping as well, and it's creeping her out. It's actually an indication of a really strong psychic ability. And
That's actually a guy.
Nova is a guy?
Nova's a guy.
Oh, sorry, Nova. Yeah, that's really indicative of strong psychic abilities. And for Alma, you will be able to find this on my YouTube channel. I will be uploading this to YouTube, and if anybody wants to be added for future Zoom chats, send me an email. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, it's biofield_559, and on Facebook, it's Diana Montijo. I have 2 accounts, and one is for my business account. Where can people find you?
I am on Instagram. It is SiriusGuidance, SIRIUS. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not that active on there. I'm on TikTok. I think that's it.
Website? Do you have a website?
I have a Square store, so that's on my Linktree.
Okay.
Armani wants to know what you have answers about the quantum leaping.
Oh, you want to know why quantum leaping happens?
I think so.
That you've done it as a kid? Okay. I remember I had these dreams that I was flying, and I think those are just indicative of out-of-body experiences. Quantum leaping is something that happens. What I would suggest to you is try to do it in a way that is intentional. Okay, it happens because we are multidimensional. If you think about so our aura, it has a boundary and it connects everything. We are connected through the aura to everything else. We are connected in this field of plasma that exists throughout space and time. Time is actually an illusion. And because we are connected to the quantum field, you are able to quantum leap. And so try doing it in a way that is intentional, and maybe plan before bed where you want to go and see how that works out for you. It's just
I mean, I can't control it though. It just happens. Like, I don't know, I'm just in one place and then I'm in another.
My son, my son can't either. And it's funny because I get the clients who come to me, they will tell me things that they don't feel like they could tell anybody else. And I have had people share that with me as well, that they quantum leap almost on a regular basis, almost nightly as well. It is indicative of a very open crown chakra. Maybe try grounding yourself, and that would anchor you maybe more in your body, and see how that works out for you. And just test it out and see how it works. Maybe sleeping with magnetite or black tourmaline, and see if that helps keep you grounded in your body.
Elise is right. You should not be that easily accessible. I astral travel here and there, and I wish I could do it more, But I think if I was quantum leaping, I might be scared.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Because I see things that I don't think I should be seeing. Like, I see cities like on fire and people running, and then some girl comes and she's like, hey, you have to help me find my mother. But I don't know who this girl is, but I just feel like I have to help her. I don't know.
Yeah, my son, he told me about this dream that he had, that he said it was a dream that wasn't a dream, and it was almost something like he was going to see it in his lifetime, in this lifetime. And he dreamt he was walking through the freeway, and he wasn't walking through an empty freeway, he was climbing over rubble. And he said there was soot in his nose and smoke in the air, and he had a companion with him, and his companion had a belt, but the companion's belt was it was water bottles, and there was some kind of big event that had happened in the world, and there was nothing but rubble everywhere. So
That sounds like the zombie apocalypse.
yeah, that's yeah.
Does your son, does he have recurring nightmares, like the same one over and over, a particular one?
I believe he does, but they're just so common to him. He doesn't come and tell me like this happened again, this happened again. They're just so common to him. And so I'll have to ask him about that, but there's nothing that he's mentioned to me that is repetitive. It was that one dream that I told you about that was a dream that wasn't a dream that stood out, because he said it was so surreal, and he just had this strong knowing that it was something he was going to experience in his lifetime.
Yeah, the reason I asked that was just because I don't know if I've been doing this since I was like a kid, but I used to have this one dream about like this clown. He used to open my door, and it was in my house too, which made it even scarier. And he used to just like terrorize me like every night. And I was like the same nightmare. It was to the point where I didn't want to sleep because I'm like, I'm gonna see this clown like every night.
And people already don't like clowns.
Right. I have oh gosh, this might be TMI. I have entities that attack me in my sleep.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it started when I was 15, and they try to take over my soul. And it's like sometimes I'll be in my sleep speaking a language that is not anything that I know.
Foreign.
And it's happened several times, and it's scary. So yeah.
There was a movie about that back in the day.
Yes, the 70s. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, that it is something that I don't know. What I think is that these entities, they can get attracted to your specific frequency or your light or your energy, whatever it is. And so someone's asking about my YouTube account. I will have to, I'm sorry, it's under my name, I believe, Diana or Biofield. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that question. Let me look it up. Does anyone have any questions? Because we are really getting short on time.
And I can't see who's in here on my phone.
You can't see it. We have 21 people.
I
have a question.
I'm happy.
So first, hold just a minute, Alma. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Alma. So for the person that was asking about my YouTube channel, it's just under Diana Montijo, Montijo, and send me an Instagram message if you want to be added to for future Zoom chats, and I'll add you to my email list. Okay, go ahead, Alma. I'm sorry.
So I have Saturn and Mars, but everybody has Saturn that conflicts in their life. That's what I'm understanding from her.
I don't understand the question.
No, Alma, Saturn, Saturn, if it aspects in a square, any kind of square is an opposition and like a hard stop. And so everybody has Saturn. Everybody has Saturn somewhere in their chart. So
And Mars too.
yeah, and so it just depends on how it aspects. But you could get a reading from Sirena and she can give you a better idea of why you're struggling in certain ways or what your strengths are too. How about that? Our strengths that show up in our chart.
Okay, thank you. I would.
Did that answer your question, Alma?
Yeah, it's just astrology is confusing. It's so much to learn.
Astrology is like learning another language.
It is.
I try to make it as simple as possible, but sometimes people are still overwhelmed and not sure. And that's why I have lots of different readings available, because maybe the birth chart all at once is too much. So you want to take it little by little, have a slice here before you get the whole cake.
So with someone with a
Yeah.
hard Saturn aspect, because wouldn't that be issues of control or would that be Scorpio placements?
It could be both. It could be that they have karmic debt that they have to pay back. It just depends on what all else is going on in the chart. It's hard for me to really give a generalized answer without actually seeing the chart. Because she could have a stellium, which is going to change the energy of the planet as well.
So Nova, going back to what Nova was saying about his quantum leaping, is that something that would be reflected in his chart?
I
Ooh,
did
good
his
question.
chart and that did not come up, but he didn't ask about it either. That to me would probably fall under maybe the 12th house, or like you said, psychic powers. And he is a Cancer sun.
So what people don't understand is that our brain is like an antenna. Our
Mhm.
brain is an antenna. We are electrical in nature. It is, we both send and receive energy. And all of that energy, it moves through this plasma, ocean of plasma that exists between everything. It even exists in solid. Solid is energy that only appears to be solid, but there's actually large amounts of empty space contained within a solid. We exist in a field of plasma and ether, and we're all connected. And so I think that you just have a really strong antenna. What one psychic told me, she's a personal friend of mine. She said in the spirit world, everybody both sends and receive. Some people are stronger senders and some people are stronger receivers. So it sounds like you are tuning in to other timelines is what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And
Can
that
you-
something like that is not necessarily going to show up in the birth chart. But if he has 12th house placements, which I believe he does, that is also going to make him more open to this kind of thing.
Can we talk about the South Node?
Sure.
What does the South Node reflect?
That is your past lives. The South Node represents lessons that have already been learned, tools and gifts that you can bring or have brought from past lives into this life. And another way to put it is your comfort zone. This is another reason why people don't want to do healing work, because it's so much fun and nice to be in South Node behavior. Going towards your North Node means that you have to do healing work. You have to step out of your comfort zone in order to walk towards that.
What if your South Node is empty? Like there's nothing there. There's a house there, but there's nobody in it.
Well, you still have a South Node.
Right.
And it's going to be in a house. And it doesn't matter if there's no other planets in that house. You still have a South Node.
Okay.
So for instance, if somebody has their north node in the first house, their south node is going to be in the seventh. Doesn't matter if they don't have any planets there, but their tendency for them to choose karmic partners is going to be larger because their south node is in the seventh house. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. There's just so much to it. And
Absolutely.
you have 20 years of this, so I'm trying to catch up to what you're.
And I learn something new all the time.
So
And they come up with new stuff all the time. I mean, Chiron, they only discovered Chiron in 1977. And sure, there were some decent books that were written back in the late 70s, early 80s. And now there are more. Some are good, some are not so good. But who's to say what's going to happen with Chiron and Pluto and with Pluto and Aquarius? I think Chiron should be recognized as one of the planets and should be ruled by Virgo because he's the wounded healer.
Yeah. You know, I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I was wondering if you would come back and talk to us again. And
Absolutely.
also, I want to say, so you are booked out 2 weeks. You are backed up by 2 weeks. And so I was telling Sirena that I think people wait. People will wait when they know that you are qualified, when they know that you are a professional, understand what you're doing. And so just so you know, if you want to book with Sirena, you will have to wait for more than 2 weeks. And the reason I reached out to Sirena, I found her on Instagram and she was doing a reel, and it was so spot on to me. And I thought, oh, wow. Every time you came up, I was like, oh man, that was good. That was good. And so I'm really glad that you accepted my invitation to be here. And I hope everyone had a good time and enjoyed today's chat. How much do you charge for a reading?
It depends on what kind of reading you want, because I have readings that fit every pocketbook. So a full birth chart reading is now $199. I just raised my rates. So you just have to go to my Instagram or my Facebook, click the Linktree there, and that will take you to my store. And I also offer free phone consultations in case you're not sure which one you need.
Okay. Alma is asking that you mentioned that Uranus in Scorpio is a witch's energy.
Yes, I've
that
said
correctly?
that before. I've said that before. Neptune in Scorpio is witch energy too. I'm Neptune in Scorpio.
I have
Scorpio period is witch energy. But in order to embrace that, you have to do healing work.
And Uranus is exalted in Scorpio, Lotus Alyssa.
That's true. That is true.
I have Neptune in Scorpio, and Pluto in the 8th house to me is very deep, deep transformation. Wouldn't you say that?
Absolutely. Anybody who has planets in the 8th house, whether it's one or whether it's a stellium, you are a tremendous healer, but you have to heal yourself first.
Yeah, that hasn't been easy.
And it's not an easy journey.
Yeah.
But I tell people all the time, especially with the babies born during this Taurus North Node, Scorpio South Node, these babies have a lot of karmic debt to pay back in terms of generational trauma because their parents didn't do it and those parents didn't do it, but they have free will. They can choose to heal that, or they can choose the flip side of Scorpio, which is addiction. So this is not a fun axis to be born under, quite frankly. All of my clients who have Taurus North Node, Scorpio South Node, and my dad was one of them, said that it's really difficult. It's a difficult life.
Astrologer Molly McCord said that the reason there are so many souls on the planet right now is because everyone wanted to be here to for this time, what's happening in this time, and also to work through karmic debts and to resolve karmic stories and karmic contracts. Alma is asking to elaborate on the witch's energy in Scorpio. I'm not quite sure what you want to know, Alma. A Scorpio is the
It's
occult.
Anna.
Oh,
Anna, it's not Alma.
okay, so Anna. Scorpio is the occult, and planets in Scorpio represent occult knowledge.
Yes. And if you want to be a really good witch, you got to study. And part of that involves healing work. It's not like you can wave a magic wand and make things happen. And that's one of the reasons why the internet is a blessing and a curse, because there are spells on the internet, and there are people out there who are looking up spells because they want to get back at an ex or whatever. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can create a whole lot of stuff that you don't want to create.
Yeah, that's why I don't mess with that that kind of work. But I heard someone put it this way: scientists call it quantum physics, witches call it magic,
True.
and the church calls it prayer. So we are all able to send and receive energy. We are powerful manifestors.
Yes.
And we get that has been shut down a lot. The knowledge of that has been shut down and suppressed quite a bit.
But the more healing work you do, the more you can manifest.
Yes. Lotus Elise said, if you want to get in touch with your witchy side, hit me up on Instagram.
She's got a lot of Scorpio energy.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot in Scorpio. Well, Neptune is a really big, Neptune is no boundaries, right? There's no boundaries with Neptune. And so in Scorpio, that's really significant placement, because it's a water sign as well. Neptune is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we are at 7:30. This is the last call for questions. And what would you say about the time that we're going through now, as far as it pertains to there's no going back, as it pertains to the Pluto transits of there's no going back?
There's going to be a lot of changes coming. I wish that I could be more specific as to exactly what those are going to be, but it's really hard to say. But just know that Pluto is a planet of healing and transformation. And in order for us to really embrace the changes that are coming, we have to face our shadow side. Like I said earlier, change is the only constant thing in life. And Pluto in Aquarius is really going to revolutionize every level of our existence. So therefore, any astrologer can really only speculate about what's coming. But just know that change is a part of this reality, and it would be best to embrace it rather than to resist it.
Yeah, so I was reaching out, or actually someone reached out to me about change that I have going on, and I told her that a story came to mind about my son, who we were in the ocean, and there was this big wave coming, and my son saw me tense up, and he told me, "Mom, don't tense up. You need to ride with the wave, because if you tense up, it'll just knock you over even harder." And
this is a preview of the dawn of a new civilization. Pluto's only going to be in Aquarius for 3 months, and then we'll retrograde back into Capricorn in June. So really, the greatest resource that we have is ourselves and each other. But the biggest threat that we face is the action or the non-action of the collective. And this is why healing, or the non-healing of humanity, is make it or break it. No turning back.
I think that there's some people who won't be able to change.
100%. I was going to say that earlier, but I don't want to scare the bejesus out of people who don't know me and aren't familiar with how I speak.
Okay, so I'm going to post this on YouTube, and if anybody has any requests for a different Zoom chat as it pertains to astrology, maybe you can come on in maybe a couple of months or so. I do have a tarot reader who comes online like every equinox, every solstice, every change of seasons. And so I don't want to ask for more than what I should from you, because you have been very generous in joining us. Did I give you enough time to explain what you are offering with your pay service that you're doing, your class, and then you have a subscription service as well?
I do have a subscription service. It's very affordable. It's only $5 a month, but it's a lovely little community. I have a group chat that it only used to be twice a week. It's now turning into almost a daily thing. And we call ourselves the Coven. We also have similar Chiron wounds too. So it's a very supportive, very helpful little network of people. And you get a lot for $5 a month. Let me just say that. And I do certain things for them that I don't do for other people. They get discounts on classes, they get discounts on readings. So it's a fun place to be.
So send me any links on our messaging on Instagram, and I will provide that underneath this video. Okay?
Okay.
Because this is going to get uploaded to YouTube. Anna is saying she just met a guy who has Uranus in Scorpio. Nova is saying that's a generational planet. Let's see. I think that's it. I think I don't want to drag things out too long. I don't want to be guilty of doing that. But I'm going to sign off for now, everybody. I hope you all received what you wanted from this Zoom chat. And if you want to be included for future ones, hit me up and send me your personal email. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you accepting my invitation. I cannot even tell you how how much I was looking forward to today.
I'm glad you're okay with Steven Tyler in the background. Like I said, I don't know how he got there. I don't know how to change him.
I could show you. We'll have to do a Zoom chat. I could show you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.